If you're looking for an opportunity to make money with GPT-5, then listen up. I've made multiple four-figure deals from Vibecoded apps within my agency, Blue Horizon AI, and today I'll show you my experience planning and building 50 of these using GPT-5 and show the top 3 that anyone can potentially make money from. By the end, you understand the true potential behind vibe coding within GPT-5, and if you do stay to the end, you will see that there's a lot of money to be made if you understand this opportunity. And so I'll first explain where the opportunity is coming from within the current market, and then apply these concepts to reflect on my project and display the results from the top 3 apps along with my experience making them. So before you start thinking that this is some get rich quick with AI video, I need to explain to you the reality behind this. And this isn't even advice coming from me, but from this guy here, Guillermo Rauch. He's an Argentinian dude, so I think that's how you say his last name. Anyway, he's the co-founder and CEO of Vercel, and he also runs V0, which is a vibe coding platform where you can make your own apps from simple prompts into an AI. And I really like what he has to say because he's a very product first kind of guy, even though he is very technical and he is a coder like by nature. He does explain the customer experience and that comes first whenever you build anything. So the reality behind him and Vercel, and then also V0, which is his vibe coding platform, he really breaks down the actual strategy behind making money with software these days, which is such a commoditized thing that AI has made available to us. And so now that you know who he is and how he brings, that relevancy and ideas to the vibe coding game, there's a few things and concepts that I want to elaborate on that he talks about to make this all relevant and circle back to it later on. So firstly, he says that there are things currently in this world that you may want and no one has built it yet. And so what this means is pretty much there's so many things that can be solved with the problems and technology that we have in our hands, but in this day and age, people haven't yet capitalized on it. And so he describes the point that we're at very similar to when the iPhone was first released and we had this revolution going on when people finally realized in the home screen grids of the phones that they needed to claim a square within that grid. So essentially this was the beginning of SaaS and people developing products that would sit within these grids of people's phones and claim a spot, right? And this would be their customer experience. This would be like the delivery of value and essentially how they would make money, right? And then from this, what Guillermo says is that from this age, there were many problem thinkers, so people who thought about how to solve different problems, but only few people who could actually execute on these solutions. And these were the coders who had the experience and the technique and the skills to actually be able to go and execute on these solutions that were just stuck in entrepreneurs' minds and stuff. But with that being said, in our current day and age, it is very different because we have the same amount of problems that can be solved within that grid that people can just download things and kind of get value from. We have the same amount of people with solutions in their head, but with AI, we have unlimited resources to execute it with. And GPT-5 has just become another one of these tools that we can use to leverage that and make money from. And what I really want to touch on here is his comparison between the availability of different, products and SaaSes for people to extract value from to the current day and age of AI and that sort of stuff that people can just get access to unlimited information or unlimited sort of value from whatever it is that they're trying to get. And so with that being said, you can imagine this current home screen here as being empty in the AI space because people only use a few of them with the recent introduction of vibe coding platforms. So you can have, OpenAI here, Perplexity, and maybe NotebookLM. So maybe someone has like 3 of these apps in their grid of their iPhone, so to speak. But he says that in a few years, because we are so easily connected to these vibe coding platforms and our ideas can so quickly become reality, he says that these home screen grids can very quickly become millions of these accessible platforms that people just constantly go to extract value from. And that is the opportunity that I want to put in front of you today. So let this video serve as a foundation of all the incredible things that you're able to build. And what I'm about to show you are only some of these examples. Now, firstly, I wanted to walk you through the entire document full of my brainstorms and stuff that went through AI, calculated through and stuff within the prompt, just to show you what I was searching for within all these 50 ideas that I began with. But if you go through them, especially these early ones over here, you see that a lot of them were just very similar to each other. They were all like around games and stuff. But what I was looking for was specifically for game changers around business and ideas that GPT could potentially execute within just a simple prompt. And that's the second reason that I want to show this document here, is to show you the one shot. So literally this is all that I put into the GPT and really able to extract a whole bunch of value from, a great output and a great foundation for you to start building these deeper and more profound and more developed apps through vibe coding. And so this really highlights how little you have to do just to start off with one of these ideas. So kind of skimming through them, I kind of had them separated between, regular games, business related apps, and then everyday life things. And all the 50 ideas are here. If you find any of these interesting yourself, they are all available to you for free, along with the short list of the ones that I will show you in this video in live action. But with that being said, here are the 3 that I was only able to put in a very simple prompt and then extract a great output in return. So this one here is the lead tracker, which you can see a very simple prompt, and GPT thought for a little bit, so 14 seconds, and it was able to come up with several hundred lines of code. I think this one was like 600 or something. So let's go through the prompt and then I'll run the code here in the Canvas tool. This one says build a lead tracker that ranks opportunities within the pipeline. So I enter leads with the fields like company size and budget. So this is obviously something that you'd extract from business prospecting or something. And then I say to the AI to let me define simple scoring rules in plain language, and then auto assign a priority and suggest next steps. And then on top of that, I could have a dashboard with today's top 10 leads. So like I said, it thought for 14 seconds. I can run the code over here, and then in a few seconds we get this output here. So let me stretch out that screen. So just as a first look, you can see that the design is pretty good. I quite like from the GPTs that it doesn't actually use the same like kind of really bright CSS, whatever, that these other Vibecode platforms use that to make it really vibrant and stuff. So I like this standard black and white stuff, but you will see that GPT kind of uses that as a bias with all of these solutions that you build. As long as you specify in your prompt what you want it to look like, then of course it will like add in these colors and stuff. But other than that, this is kind of the standard thing that it looks to accomplish. Very simple and very straightforward. And then really focuses on maybe a few different things beyond your prompt. So that's something that I've noticed. So with that being said, we can go through a few different things here. So obviously this is the top 10 leads dashboard here. This is the all leads kind of tab where I can put in everyone. So if I put in a lead and then go through, all of the contact opportunity and stuff, you'll see that everything will be based off of these scoring rules, which I can add here in plain language. And so right off the bat here, without even adding a lead, if I change the rule for a budget for someone who can only spend more than $10,000, and then I click that, you will see that we immediately get a priority change from each of these based on the budget that have been allocated to that lead, which I think is really cool. And it's something that, from even the sales teams that we talk to within our agency, this is right off the bat something that they would use because they don't even have a system that does this, right? And GPT-5 created this in a couple of minutes, thought for 14 seconds, and then generated hundreds of lines of code very, very easily. And then from here, you look at, okay, what are the other factors beyond the prompt itself? Because it has delivered just from this, simple interface that we've just checked here. So for example, I could export the leads, but then you can see that the button isn't actually clickable. So then this is where you'd actually go through the iteration process. You'd ask the GPT, hey, make this button over here clickable. And so this isn't even any shade on GPT-5 and its functionality and stuff. This is obviously what you go through the iteration process, the chatting back and forth, which has always been the best thing about ChatGPT. It's only that right now it is competing with other platforms like Lovable and V0 and that sort of stuff that I've just gone through that in my opinion have a better way to debug these systems, these errors when they do come up. But regardless, if I'm a client and I've never seen Vibecode in my life and GPT-5 has just created me this entire interface for me to input my leads, then this is a massive opportunity. And this is all from a couple of lines of a prompt, which I can iterate over and then change through a back and forth, conversation with this super smart model, and then just go from there. So then just to show you guys the final little bit of this functionality of the app, the contact and opportunity here, we'll just say One Fitness. We've got Kai over here from One Fitness. Company size of maybe 30. They can't type 30, which is fine. So budget, we'll say we are doing $10,000. If we add the lead, it is immediately allocated based on these rules. So again, because my company size is probably low, then it wouldn't have given a high score just as like Acme because they have a high budget and then obviously the bigger company size. You get the point, you get the score over here, and then from that point you can prioritize these leads. Now for our next one, if you go back into the projects tab here for my coding and scroll through the whole bunch of projects that I had, this is the resume helper one, which is another great tool that I played around with. The prompt over here, again, probably even simpler than before. It says create a resume helper. I upload a resume and paste job descriptions. Show a match score and missing keywords, just a short rewrite of the summary, and then export a tailored version as a document. So again, very straightforward. The AI has to think about all of these things themselves. And I was really impressed, even though it's not 100% functional, as I said, just like the last example. If I run this code, it thought for 11 seconds, generated hundreds of lines of code, and this was the output. So this is what I was talking about. In terms of the visual aspect of it, it is very consistent with the black and white, very simple. What I'm going to do now is upload my resume. So that resume has got some dummy data for like a 15-year-old who just finished school, has a few accomplishments during school, and is looking for a job, okay? And then in this field here, we can paste in any extra text if the parsing isn't correct. And now in this following step, I'll just go into LinkedIn or something, search for a job. So in this example, I just put in project managers. And then obviously this is the job description here, which I can copy the entire thing, paste it in this field over here, and then click Analyze Match. Oh yeah, I forgot. So the error that was wrong with this particular app was that I needed to actually paste the text itself. It wasn't passing any of the files that I put into it, so my resumes. So going again, I can actually paste in the text and then put in the job description from over here. So copy that and then paste it into there. And then from there, we can analyze the match. And we saw we got a 19% score just from the keywords that are analyzed over here. And then suggest a summary rewrite and that sort of stuff. So this doesn't even have AI integrated into it. This is just the rules and the code that the AI put into the code itself. And as I was going about this project, what I thought of is that these apps could be so much more enhanced and so much more optimized if you did include AI agents on top of them, AI applications or little assistants that could come up. The implications really are limitless when you start thinking and opening up a world of opportunities with this technology in your hands, right? And then lastly, we have this feature here where you can export the tailored docs, but I don't think it works as well. Again, same idea. You can go back over here, chat back and forth with the AI. If you're a beginner, this is exactly what you need to learn and get your hands on. All right, and then the last one that we've got here in our list, again, I could have gone through many different ones to show you today, but this is very surface level just to give you an idea of what is possible, just with a simple prompt like this. So the code here was to code me a simple OKR tracker. So this is kind of like a KPI tracker with the Canvas tool. I can define objectives, key results, owners, and target numbers. And then having weekly check-ins and status colors on track, at risk, and off track, and having a summary dashboard and quarterly export. So this is very much based within like team tracking and KPI tracking within businesses, which is obviously a huge thing if you are a large corporation. I would say the last one that we just went through was more of like a life, so looking for jobs and that sort of stuff. So that tackling that area more. But if we run this code, we can see that the AI did a brilliant job, very basic as well regarding the color scheme that I went for. I probably should have gone with and tried out these different colors to see if the AI had different, design creativity that it could apply to these projects. But anyway, the reason I was so surprised with this specific output from the AI is really the length and the depth that it was able to tackle from the simple prompt. And I'll show you what I mean in a second. But for example, if the title of the objective is for Kaiki to close more deals, 5 more deals, I can come back over here, add an owner. So these will be the people of my team that are going to be accountable for each individual task or whatever. So obviously I can create Kaiki over here. And then if I add that, the unassigned will turn into Kaiki. I added John before. So this has obviously got local storage. The quarter, I can say it's for 2025 Q3, or in this case, I'll just go Q4. Then just like that, I can add the objective. And then now this will be saved. I can then reference this later. If you look over here at the bottom of the screen, we have added the close 3 more deals with the owner of Kaiki, which in the future we can then update. We can say like what our KPIs look like, what our numbers look like. And then we can see over here that in terms of owner workload, we've added myself and I've got one sort of KPI to track under my belt. But going back to this KPI over here that I've set for myself for 2025 Q3, we can now do an update. So let's say the team have revisited this, and now I can say that I've added $100,000 to the business this month, and then put myself as the owner. And then the target for 3 deals will say it would have been like $50,000. So if you add this key result, we can see that we have now another tab under that. And for this weekly check-in here, we can go over here, put in our status for on track, what I'm currently doing in terms of money, any additional notes. So it's got that added into it. I was really impressed by the drop down and the sort of intuitive interface that I was able to have with this particular app. Once again, very simple prompt, and then it was able to deliver on this. And in this case, GPT-5 even provided me with a step-by-step way to use this. Again, a few things that weren't fully working was my ability to then export this as a CSV. I can't click any of these buttons, so I can actually import JSON, but I would probably want this to be more user-friendly and just say import a list or something. But you get the point. If we relate this back to what Guillermo was saying and what I showed you in terms of his concepts, then this is something that no one has really built and kind of gone in depth with, and you have the opportunity to do that with no coding knowledge right now. And so going back to the Figma board here, let me make this a full circle moment and leave you with a final piece of Guillermo wisdom before we close off. So Guillermo says that meta skills are more important than coding nowadays. And he says this from a context of AI now being the lower end of the hierarchy, being able to execute the code. So the task that you actually set out the AI to finish, which we've seen this ever since GPT 3.5 when it generates like essay summaries, but now it is code, and this is high level code that we're talking about. This leaves humans up here in the kind of hierarchy chain as the strategists behind every single one of these executions. And so before you go off to use GPT-5 to put your ideas to use, or V0 or any other of these vibe coding platforms that actually leverage your ideas into fully custom built apps, I would first advise you to think from a product first perspective, an outcome first mentality that really focuses on customer experience and what you want them to feel when they interact with your platforms that you built on these vibe coding apps. This way you're able to level yourself up and become the managers of these AI agents and platforms, which really is just like hiring any other employee under you. And so with that being said, I want to close this off by saying that I hope this helped, and I certainly hope that I made it clear to you that this isn't some hack that you can just make money from, but it's a skill that you can harness with the technology that we have available today to your advantage. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.